This episode is brought to you by Google Gemini. With the Gemini app, you can talk live and have a real-time conversation with an AI assistant. It's great for all kinds of things, like if you want to practice for an upcoming interview, ask for advice on things to do in a new city, or brainstorm creative ideas. And by the way, this script was actually read by Gemini. Download the Gemini app for iOS and Android today. Must be 18 plus to use Gemini Live.
Hello, welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. This is Kirk Henderson, joined as always by Josh Bowe. We are recording just a few minutes before midnight on Monday, December 30th. Josh, how you doing?
Whew. That was certainly a game. It is cruel that is the kind of game that we have to watch for like a West Coast game. Like if we're gonna watch a game like that, they could at least make it an East Coast game, you know? Like, why was that the West Coast game? Or maybe that just makes it all better that this game happened and it's midnight basically.
Right. Well, and it you know, categorically, this is going to be a lot of game that, you know, Mavericks fans probably skip from the get go because we get
no one played.
No one played. So you get like a late breaking news. You're already missing Luka. Kyrie Irving, the Mavericks opted to sit him. He apparently. I don't know what's wrong with him, but he has like an ongoing shoulder issue, which I think will probably be just sort of the injury du jour that they go to with him, whether he's needing rest or whatnot. But after two extraordinarily high minutes games where Kyrie kind of gave it his all, this is a fair enough game for them to decide that he needed rest. Derek Lively missed his third straight game with whatever hip issue is bothering him, though Kidd said he's progressing nicely. Clay missed the game due to illness, and Najee Marshall hilariously tweeted something along the lines of like, it wasn't me before the game, which made me laugh. Obviously, Najee Marshall missed the game due to his suspension. So the Mavericks were down 4 starters and a 5th key role player. Expectations for this game were not high. And I'm already dealing with motherfuckers that love to tell me, what did you expect? And I'm like, I just hate that shit. I watch these games. I write about these games. I care about these games. So when the Mavericks come out and really blow the Kings off the court in the first few minutes, needless to say, I was surprised. The Kings are a team that's on the edge of just mailing it in for the rest of the season. They had lost 6 straight. And they did not look good. And the Mavericks looked like a team that had punched them in the mouth, with Spencer Dinwiddie hitting some big shots in the first quarter. PJ Washington looking like the kind of player we'd hoped he could become given the right circumstances. The Mavericks took a 37-23 lead, which should have been a 37-20 lead. But a particular guard who drives me absolutely crazy just sort of did the thing he does, which was not play defense, and, you know, allowed the Kings to get a 3-point shot off with 3 seconds left. Pretty embarrassing. I'll let you guys guess which guard it is. Doesn't particularly matter at the moment. The second quarter, the Mavericks, quite understandably, weren't as hot. Only the difference was the Mavericks managed to keep the Kings at bay by marching to the free throw line. The Mavericks really forced the issue in the first 30 minutes of this game, getting to the line with just regular consistency, and the Kings were frankly fouling stupidly. And the Mavericks had like a pretty massive free throw advantage. I think it was like 19-9 at the half. They were up by 4. In the third quarter, the Mavericks sort of reestablished. I don't want to say like dominance. That's idiotic. The Kings, like you had both De'Aaron Fox and DeMar DeRozan pick up their fourth fouls. Fox gets a technical doing like a light Luka impersonation, which really made me laugh, like just like bitching at the ref over something that was very clearly a foul. I thought it was hilarious. And then at the 6:23 mark, PJ Washington hits an 11-foot floater. And over the next 10 full minutes of NBA basketball, so 6 minutes and 23 seconds in the third, followed by 3 minutes and 40 seconds in the fourth, the Mavericks scored 5 points. 5 American NBA points. The Kings scored 27 points. And during that time frame, particularly in the third quarter run, the the Dallas Mavericks bench watched with they just watched. Nothing happened. I was probably as frustrated as I've been with Kidd as I have been since the Miami game, where I felt like he could have influenced the team. The Kings found their footing and put the foot on the gas and buried the Mavericks. The fourth quarter was an embarrassment where the Mavericks offense, where they run this, and I wrote this down, so I have no problem saying this. The Mavericks basically did their Luka through a fax machine offense where they let someone else try to do a Luka Doncic impersonation, but I mean like a 2022 Luka Doncic impersonation where there's no movement, there's one ball screen, and there's a shit ton of dribbling from whoever in the fuck was going on. And it was awful to watch, and the Mavericks lost by 10. Is that a pretty good summary?
Yeah, that's a pretty good summary. I mean, it's really funny you say all that, and then you say the Mavericks lost by 10. Like,
well, they're up by 8.
No, I know. If you just said, if you didn't tell me the score and you just told me that's how the Mavericks played, and then you'd be like, guess the final score. I'd be like, I don't know, they lost by 25.
Yes. Oh yeah. That was my expectation going into the game because it's like, and it's worth sort of discussing how they got there. The turnovers in the second half were embarrassing. The offensive rebounding was atrocious. Daniel Gafford should be embarrassed. Like, this is a guy who we have minimal expectations. We know his role, and it's not as of a starter, but he had 6 boards. PJ Washington had 4. And it's like, guys, what are you doing? What is happening?
Yeah, to be honest, it's funny because you're a little bit more fired up about this.
I'm fired up because I had to fucking ride on the game.
I know. If we swapped and if I was writing the recap, I'm sure I would be just as pissed off. But to me, like, the only thing I could think of to take away from this game, because everything just feels so fake. Like, yeah, Spencer Dinwiddie and Jaden, like, your point guards in this game were Dinwiddie, Hardy, and Brandon Williams. Like, if you go to any other NBA team and like your 4th and 5th string point guards are going to play 20 minutes or whatever, you're probably going to lose. So it's hard to take anything substantial away from the game other than, I do share, I understand your frustrations about, like, if there was ever a game for Kidd to like coach a lot, like try to pull as many strings. This is definitely one of those games where you kind of empty the tool chest, so to speak, as a coach. So I understand frustrations there. And then the other thing is, like, their rebounding is very bad. Not very bad, but it's slowly trending in the wrong direction. And Gafford's rebounding in particular has been really bad. And it was something that I think we talked about briefly when the trade initially happened, in February, when we were talking about Gafford, and we were like, here are the pros and cons of this guy. And con was he's never been a particularly good defensive rebounder for his career. And he's reaching the nadir of that this season. Like, he has been a bad defensive rebounder this season. Like, bad. When he's on the floor, the Mavericks give up an opponent offensive rebounding rate that would be the worst in the league or near the worst. And even overall as a team, when he's off the floor, it's still not a good number. And that was an issue for the team at times last season. But it was mainly before the trade deadline. They were much better about it after the trades. So the fact that PJ's in, Gafford's in, no Lively that hurts, no Luka that hurts. Lively and Luka are two of the team's best rebounders for sure. But yeah, you would hope that Gafford could step up a little bit here and to grab 6 defensive rebounds in 28 minutes. Kings had 18 offensive rebounds. It's not great. And that is just trending in the wrong direction. And injuries and whatnot, you could say, are contributing, but no Lively, definitely that hurts. But yeah, like it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know if it's a death knell for the team, because when they're all healthy, Gafford's not going to play. Presumably he's not going to play 28 minutes, but it's just something to keep an eye on is what I would say. I don't know if it's a 4-alarm, 5-alarm panic yet, but it is an issue, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, I've had multiple, and I think this is worth clarifying, or at least, putting this kind of caveat up front. I sort of go out of my way to not talk to people or ask questions of the information gatherers that surround the Mavericks. So, we're friends, a lot of these people. So, your Cato's, your Grant Afseths, and some of these other people that actually go and ask questions and talk at Mavs games, because I don't want to put them in a circumstance. I don't want to put them in a situation of having to ask something or answer me on something that they don't feel comfortable revealing. I would guess that if this is like a playoff game or something, Lively plays. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he was questionable too.
Right. So there's just elements of looking. So it's like, okay, so there's just little things where maybe this particular issue of rebounding is not life ending. Like Luka is a great rebounder. PJ is a good rebounder. He just didn't have a good rebounding game.
Yeah. Gafford is the only one where you look at it and you're like, what, like this is an issue because it's followed him his whole career. Everything else is kind of like, whatever you can, it's a blip on the radar. And again, Gafford's comes back to, like you said, if Lively plays, it's not as big of an issue. But it's just something, it's just the one thing I noticed that felt like real.
Lively also has his defensive rebounding struggles. Like we've talked about that, but they're different than Gafford. It's Gafford. I just get frustrated because, and again, like people, I'm already getting fun. It's like, what did you expect? What did you expect, Kirk? I expect when you're up by 18 to win the fucking basketball game. I'm sorry. I expect that you shouldn't go 10 minutes and score 5 points as NBA players. I expect the coach to call a timeout, run an interesting out of timeout play, and not the Spencer Dinwiddie dribble, shitty pass to a big man, or in this case, Gafford offense.
There was a lot of standing and watching Dinwiddie dribble.
What was happening there?
That was weird. They did try to get PJ some post-ups against De'Aaron Fox, which was nice. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like I didn't see a lot of dribble handoff stuff with Gafford. Nope. But then again, do you want to run dribble handoffs with Jaden Hardy?
I do. I actually would rather, I would rather see. Okay. If Hardy is going to play basketball, and keep in mind, he got taken out of the game because he was challenging. I don't want to sit here. I don't want to sit here and act like he was horrendous. The Mavericks had to play him, and he just had a rough go at things. I wish it would have gone better for him, is what I'll say.
That's the nicest thing you've ever said about Jaden Hardy.
Well, because I feel bad for the guy at a certain point because he doesn't seem to understand why he gets pulled. He gets pulled for the same stuff. It's just he's got to learn. And I was talking during the game where the Mavericks have a roster built where some of the back end guards, you're more or less hoping for 20 good games out of Spencer, 20 good games out of Hardy, 20 good games out of Exum to get you through the very long season. You never bank on a X number of week injury like Luka's going to have. So all these guys' expectations that we have for them are going to grow because they just have to eat up the minutes. And we're going to continue to see these guys. And it just sort of sucks because I think Hardy actually does a good job going downhill off of dribble handoffs.
Right.
He was given the opportunity to create tonight. He can't. That's not what he does.
Yeah, he needs his decision. Oh my gosh, can't even say the word. Decision tree needs to be narrow, right? Like you cannot give him a ton of options when he's running a set or when he has the ball in his hands. Like
he doesn't have an electric burst off the dribble unless he's getting the ball where he's already got a full head of steam. And that's not a criticism. That's just sort of a statement of the kind of athleticism that he has. Because straight line, when he's going, he can actually really move. We've seen some thunderous dunks from him. But he couldn't get past the redheaded guy for the Kings tonight. He settled for a couple of mid-range jumpers. He's not, and granted, let's just be clear here. Most NBA players can't actually get by people very well. That's how good the defenders are. I mean, we've been laughing about Spencer Dinwiddie creating a one-man grift show with his ability to get to the free throw line, with his ability to sort of sink the shoulder past whoever's defending. It's not something that Hardy's that good at. That's okay. So if you know that about Hardy, why are you giving him the opportunity to create? Run those dribble handoffs. Run some of that offense. Stop letting these guys dribble. That's not what they do. I mean, Spencer kinda, but it's like I felt that Kidd was running that act one too many times, or the Mavericks were running that act one too many times, and Spencer had to take it. I mean, if you look at Spencer's stat line, you're probably like, Kirk, what are you talking about? He was 8 of 18, he scored 30 points, and he got to the line 12 times. Just say that about 5 of his three-pointers felt like, oh no, why in the hell are you taking this shots? And a couple of his makes were like, oh no, why the hell are you taking the shots that happened to go in?
Yeah, there was a lot of he is such a free throw merchant, man.
Incredible. 12 free throws is remarkable.
I mean, he throws himself at the basket with no intention of shooting a shot. Like it's all just like, I'm getting fouled. Like everything you hate about James Harden and the way he plays the game in terms of like how he tries to draw fouls and like he's trying to draw fouls instead of trying to make shots. Like Dinwiddie, boy, he has picked that skill up and then some. I don't remember him being that much like this his first go around in Dallas.
Well, he really tried in the fourth quarter, and the refs gave him nothing. He short armed a hook shot and then flew to the ground, and the Kings scored immediately. And it's like, we just got to settle with this. Like, there's going to be a lot of Spencer. There just is. So everybody, including myself, needs to get used to it. But we've got to find. Tonight, maybe obviously wasn't the night for it, but there's just got to be a little pull that foot off the throttle.
Yep.
I don't know.
And really, it's funny. Like I was looking at like some of the team stats and like defensively, the Mavericks were like, okay, like the Kings didn't shoot the ball well from 2 or from 3. I mean, they shot okay from 2, but they were 42% from the floor, 31% from 3. They got to the free throw lines 19 times, which isn't like a ton. They had, 48 points in the paint, which is, if you hold a team under 50 points in the paint, I think that's a relative win. But then you look at it and it's turnovers. The Maverick, the total turnovers were pretty close. It was 18-16. Mavericks had 18, Kings had 16. But boy, were all of the Mavericks turnovers like the catastrophic live ball turnovers. The Kings had 25 points off those turnovers, 21 fast break points. Like that was the only thing that got their offense going.
There's not a Maverick
part that feels frustrated, I imagine.
And you can't. The one thing that I will say is that us fans, I don't think I can actually lay what happened there in terms of turnovers on any one guy. You go through this box score collective, and 2 for PJ, 3 for Daniel Gafford, 2 for Spencer, which is kind of like, I honestly, he deserves more because he threw some tremendously bad passes that ended up going the other way. 4 for Grimes. Grimes' turnovers were probably the ones where I'm sitting there going, bruh, what are you doing?
Grimes sometimes thinks he has a little bit too much dip on his chip.
He had very like, that's where the Tim Hardaway of it all comes back, because it was like I think he had 2 off of travels. Like you can't like the NBA never calls traveling.
And then he had a couple of shot attempts that were like so misjudged that like that's a turnover. Like you might as well call that a turnover. He had this one fast break where he made this really nice behind the back dribble move to get out into the break. and he went 1-on-1 into like Trey Lyles, who's like a good 5 inches taller than him at the rim, and it's just like buddy, like that's a low percentage shot, and then like it doesn't count as a turnover, but it's almost like a turnover in a way.
Yeah.
But, yeah. He gets really excited to like do some dribble stuff sometimes, and it's almost like you just want to tell him like, hey, chill, it's all good.
Yeah.
But in a game like tonight where you don't have any of your your 3 best offensive creators or attackers are gone, I don't really blame him for being like, all right, I got to do some of this stuff, and just didn't work out.
Yeah, no, didn't. Then you got Brandon Williams and Jazz Gortman, the Mavericks sort of G League adjacent duo. They had 5 turnovers between the two of them, and
what do you think about Brandon Williams getting 19 minutes, more than Gortman, almost more than Hardy?
I felt like that kid pulled Hardy in favor of Williams. So there's like 20 minutes between the each one of those players had 20 minutes. So Hardy had 21, Williams had 20. And I think that kid, and I'm just guessing, but the ball moved a little more when it was in Brandon Williams' hands. Like there was a little more purpose. There wasn't quite so much pounding. I also think that he doesn't get lost. Like it's sort of hard. You got to go back and watch plays, but like the things that Hardy gets lost on defensively are the kind of things that drive coaches insane. So that's what I think.
Okay, that's fair.
I mean,
I don't have as strong as opinion. What would be like an example of the things that you think Hardy is driving kid nuts with?
I mean, you don't like you gave up Hardy gave up a 3 at the end of the first quarter.
Oh yeah.
Like
where it's just like you keep your head on straight and you get out of that quarter. Okay.
No, and instead he both allows the catch and then olays the guy down the court and gives him the 3. It's like play some defense, have some pride, do something.
Yep.
And maybe I'm being too hard. I'm sure somebody will send me a clip and be like, "This is why you're being very mean to Jaden Hardy." And I could be. I mean, Hardy had 2 blocks. Like there were some moments.
The team had 13 blocks, which was
like
funny.
There's obviously moments from him. It's just this is an opportunity to step up. And it wasn't there. And so again, nobody really wants to hear me whinge about this. Like that's what when the Mavericks lose games, nobody listens to any of these shows. Everyone's all right, let's just move wrong. And I think there's some again, we talked before the Wolves game about how the Mavericks are in a great spot. They just need to ride out some wins. And instead, because of injuries, they've lost 3 in a row.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Jeremy says we should talk more about Gafford than Hardy. I mean, Gafford's one. I think we did. We talked about Gafford for about 5 solid minutes, but the Gafford thing, I don't know how to correct it because, how many years has he played? 5.
Yeah, something like that.
It's like go grab the rebound.
No, this is on his third. He's on his 3rd team. Yeah, I don't know really I don't know what to diagnose. Like he doesn't box out.
He does not box.
He doesn't box out, and then he flops so much for the push in the back foul.
Did you?
Which sometimes he has like a good case for it, but he is very much boy who cries wolf. Like
yes,
if you flail your arms every single time someone puts a hand in your back during a rebounding, like refs are eventually going to be like, I'm not calling it. Like you just can't do that as often as he does and expect because refs aren't going to call a foul every single time. You know what I mean? Like that's teams know that and play defense around that. The Los Angeles Lakers are a famous example that you've brought up a bunch, where they play defense, where they dare the refs to blow the whistle every single possession. And obviously the refs aren't going to do that. We've seen, and I've made examples to the Seattle Seahawks NFL team, their defense, when they won Super Bowls, their secondary would hold all the time because they dared the refs to throw a flag every single play. And like, that's not going to happen. Like if Gafford is going to keep doing that every time he feels a hand in his back, it's like, buddy, like at some point you just gotta go get the ball. Because you're not getting the call. So, I don't know what it is. I saw someone else make a comment, and I didn't know if it was worth expanding on, but someone was like, he just doesn't seem to have a good feel
Yes.
for going after the ball. Like he doesn't seem to know where the ball is going off of a
He missed time
rebound.
stuff a lot.
Yeah. And they said tonight was a really good example because like he was going up against Sabonis, who has a really good feel for where the ball's going to be when it bounces off the rim. And I don't know who it was, so I apologize, whoever I'm ripping this comment off of, whether it's someone watching right now or someone on Twitter. But I thought that was a pretty decent observation. And it stood out a lot more tonight, is that it just seems like when the ball hits the rim, it's like doesn't even make an attempt at it because he's not like in the right spot or he doesn't know when to go after it. And then there's some block chasing that he does as well, which I don't know if that's the like if I had to rank like his rebounding issues, like number one, I think is the flailing, flopping thing when he gets hit, when he gets pushed in the back. Number two is I don't think he has a good feel for where the ball's coming off the rim. And then I would rank three, maybe some block chasing, but maybe I have those priorities out of order.
I was very worried about this game, regardless of who was playing, because Fox, Monk, and Sabonis all really work well together with getting these kind of shots that the Mavericks defense is willing to give up. And the Kings just didn't exploit it until the fourth quarter, when they really started like burying some of these shots.
Yeah, they were 3 of 6 in the mid range in the fourth quarter.
And it's tough to defend against. And Fox in particular has I like his floater when he has it going. And I thought he would bait Gafford into some block attempts, but Gafford ended up he got a few of Fox's shots early, and I was like, oh, well, this is interesting. Mm-hmm. There's really something there, and it held on long enough, and the Mavericks just eventually kind of got out talented, which is like absolutely the case. I just think that you got to understand, guys, like I'm going to circle back to somebody talked about.
We have to talk about the game because, like, we can acknowledge that they shouldn't have won this game, and it's not a big deal that they lost this game considering the circumstances. But we can't just say that and close our podcast in 5 minutes. Like, we got to talk about why they lost. Like,
I wanted them. Like, I'm a little frustrated because let's just say Luka's out until post All-Star break. Okay. Just say that for sake of argument. It's a lot of games. The Mavericks have to start. If the Mavericks want to remain in the top 6, you have to steal some things now and again. Games you're not supposed to win.
Yeah, the Portland one is the one that's going to sting.
Yes.
I feel like because this, like, the Kings are a mess, but they're a better roster than the Trailblazers. Like that one was tough. I think that's a tough result.
So it's very, and this is where, TGK PSP in the chat says, how do you feel about the Rockets, Cavs, and Grizzlies up next? That is why I'm pissy. Like, you're hitting it on the head here. That is why I'm like, fuck. You got to get one of these because it softens the blow of perhaps being, and let's just be candid. Like, the Mavericks could be looking at a 6-game losing streak. Like 6 games.
Yeah, because then they play Los Angeles after that. Then they go back home to Portland, and then they play Denver twice. Then they play New Orleans, and they play Oklahoma City. I mean, realistically, you're looking at two games in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 out of the next 9 games, they might be favored.
So that is why I have come into this with like, man, I'm really mad that they let this slip away. Not really mad, but I'm mad enough to write about it. And I probably should have expounded on that in my recap a little more. I wrote this, and I don't think I said this. Part of why the lack of kid timeout during that 17-2 run or whatever it was. I mean, it ended up being a 24-5 run is kind of, or 27-5 run, or rather. These guys are playing tonight. They're not like, this is not a team on the rise. This is a team that has arrived. The Mavericks, I mean. I don't care about Jazzy Gortman and Brandon Williams' learning experiences. Realistically, they will absolutely never matter to a Mavericks playoff game and a playoff run.
They probably won't be on the roster next year.
Probably won't be on the roster. It's not to say they're bad guys. That's That's not what I mean.
They're two-way guys. You churn through those guys.
That's
how
right.
it works. Yeah.
And maybe you find something, maybe you don't, but one of the perks of being a contender is to just not have to dedicate brain experience to these certain experience, like brain thought power or whatever, time, like, to caring what these guys do. And so kids' whole deal of like guys have to figure out how to play through this sort of stuff is like, no, you need to micromanage these guys. You do. You have to micromanage them because you need the win, and they didn't.
Nope. Yeah, I think I said that earlier. I think the two legitimate grievances I think fans can have coming out of this game, and we talked about the rebounding with Gafford, and Gafford's like he just played a bad game overall too, not just the rebounding. That was the one, and the other is like you said, the coaching stuff. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on it, but again, these are the games where you empty the bag of tricks, right? You throw in different looks,
and they had
plays, different sets. Yeah. Well, can we get some zone defense? Can we try some? I'm not saying it's going to work, but this is the game where you get weird, right? You get real, like I feel like I've been making a lot of like cross sport analogies lately, which is like not advisable because we're talking about the NBA, we're talking about basketball, and I keep bringing up the NFL. Like like an NFL game when like they got to play the backup QB, like they don't just run the same offense to starter. Like they'll gimmick it up, they'll trick it up a little bit. Maybe you call for a fake punt on fourth down. Maybe you call for I don't know, something different. And it did feel a little bit like at times that they were just kind of rolling out what they normally do.
The playing Williams, that's a good point from Drew in the chat. Playing Williams is kind of getting weird because I don't think we've seen him except for spot minutes.
I wanted more though, more weird for sure, more than that. But maybe that's an unreasonable expectation there. Like maybe more Kessler Edward. Like if they needed more wing, I don't know.
The team that moved on from him. Ooh.
Yeah, revenge game.
This was tough. This is one that's going to kind of stew in my craw a little bit. It's just 3 straight losses. You're staring at maybe 2 more, maybe many more, and you just gotta hold on. And it's overthinking a loss, but it is. I'll just admit to that now that we're this far into it. But I like it. I like when they win games it would have been so cool to come in here and be like, man, the Mavs were down 4 starters and they pulled off a W. So
yeah, I know.
What are you gonna do? Okay, well, we'll be back. The Mavericks play on New Year's Day at night. Is that right?
Yeah, they play they play New Year's Day in Houston against the Rockets.
That's right, we talked about this. And Houston had their own set of challenges.
Yeah, there will be no Amen Thompson, I don't think, right? He's suspended for.
We don't know who. I don't know if we know who's suspended yet. Do we? I've not been online today.
I'm pretty sure he's suspended for like 3 games.
I don't see anything on ESPN's homepage.
It looks like he hasn't. So I guess he hasn't been suspended yet.
Yeah, they will be though. There's a no.
I would doubt he plays in that game.
Incredible. While we're here, incredible like judo toss from Amen Thompson of Tyler Hero.
Yeah, he got him to the ground quickly.
Well, he's much bigger. I mean, he's 2 inches taller and bigger, and like there's just we're in a quiet WWE moment of the NBA right now where like guys are getting a little silly, and the NBA is probably upset about that, but like I love it when these guys hate each other. It makes for much better basketball.
It makes it feel like the games matter a little bit more. Like, if you hate the other guy that you're playing against, you might, try a little bit harder to try to win the game,
So, Jeremy in the chat says Jalen Green might be suspended too. And like, depending on what kind of Jalen Green game you get, sometimes that can be a positive or a negative. But the Rockets are a fascinating team. Like they're built to drive Luka crazy. what happens if you're running a Kyrie-led offense? It could be a fun game because if you're missing Amen Thompson and you're missing Jalen Green, the Mavericks are still missing Najee Marshall, but let's just assume you get Derek Lively back. Like that would be a really fun game to bounce back with a win.
Yeah, that would be their chance. Like if you're looking at the next 3 or 4 games, this one's might actually be the chance, which is kind of funny because on paper, if Houston was healthy, you'd be like, oh, they're gonna
roll the Mavericks on New Year's Day at home. But you know what? Also, there's the secondary element of this. Young men on New Year's Day. You know?
Yeah.
The Rockets are a team of young men. Ime Udoka, I sort of don't think he will actually be in the game. He got tossed too because that dude is a psychopath.
Yeah. And Memphis, no jaw for Memphis.
That's true.
He will miss that game.
Well, and a birdie has told me there's some concern that Ja like really hurt his shoulder, like the same thing he did last year, which sucks. It's
just like season ender.
Yeah,
just out for a long time.
Potentially out for a long time, potentially out for the whole year. And that's why they didn't pull the trigger for Dorian Finney-Smith. And the Lakers ended up getting him, which that means we get to see Dorian multiple times in the new year because the Mavericks haven't played the Lakers yet.
That's right.
Anyway, well, we talked too long about this one. I didn't even include a commercial break. I didn't expect us to go past 25 minutes, but that's fine. We'll see. I'll do another one of these live shows, guys, the secondary one. I miss talking to some of you guys, all you guys that actually come up on the show. My kids have been home since time immemorial. Like I feel like I've not had like a day where my children weren't with me, and my brain is mashed potatoes, which means my takes are probably stupider than normal. So we'll see.
You're good. You're doing great.
All right, team. We'll be back. Everybody be good. Check out MavsMoneyball.com. Be safe on New Year's Eve. Have a better part of your week. Go Mavs.
See ya.